Hello, I'm Garrett Doolittle, and I'm one of the three members of the Binding of Garrett team. Just for reference, I did not get to pick that name. I was forced into that by the other two members, but that is the name. The basic premise of Binding of Garrett is a dungeon crawler game where you complete rooms by killing enemies and collecting items to get stronger and stronger as you go through the dungeon. And after you go through roughly 20 rooms, a boss room will spawn, and you can fight that boss and then go on to the next floor, and the enemies will be harder and the boss will be harder. This is the starting screen of our game. The starting screen has two buttons, the Start button and the Controls button. The Controls button opens a menu that explains the controls of the game. You use the WASD keys to move up, left, down, and right, and you use the arrow keys to shoot up, left, down, and right. Then if you click anywhere on the screen, it goes back to the Start screen. If you click the Start button, it goes to a character select screen, where we have 5 different characters to pick from. 3 of them are group members, and 2 of them are other friends. Each character has their own stats, and you can go through the menu forwards and backwards infinitely, which is a really nice touch so that it doesn't like hit a wall and then you have to scroll back. Some games have that. Then if you click start on a specific character, I'm going to go with myself, it goes into the start room. The start room doesn't have any enemies, rocks, or items because it's the room that you start in. And I can show you that WASD allows you to move around, and if you press 2 of them at the same time, you will move diagonally. The arrow keys allow you to shoot in the 4 directions, but you cannot shoot them diagonally by pressing 2 of the arrows at the same time. That is just so that it's a little bit more similar to the actual game Binding of Isaac. Then, if you go through one of these doors, it enters a new room where there are enemies and rocks. If you hit one of the rocks, you can't walk through it and they stop the projectiles, but they do not stop the laser, which I will talk about later. If you hit the enemies, they all make noises. Some of them make the Minecraft oof sound, apples make a crunch noise, and the cats meow. And once you kill all the enemies in a room, you can leave a door, or leave another door to enter another room. And if I go through that door, it spawns more enemies, and this time there's an item in the room. There's a random chance for an item to be in a room, and there are 8 different items to spawn that can spawn in any room. So you can pick up the item. In this case, it's the computer, which will, I think, increase fire rate. Each item does its own thing that changes your stats, and most of them are a net positive. So now I can kill the enemies a little bit faster. Now I'll go into another room, and this time I'll show you that you cannot walk through any of the doors or walls while you're in the room. This top wall is meant to be like this, where you can walk a little bit up it, because it's supposed to be a top-down view where it's coming from like the bottom part of the screen, so that top wall you can actually walk up to and like walk a little bit farther than the rest of the walls. This room has 1 enemy left, and it has that item in the center. This item in the center changes your projectiles from tears to a laser. The laser is a little bit different from the tears, where it doesn't have infinite range, so it can't go across the whole room, but it does hit constantly, so it damages them a little bit quicker and can go through rocks like this. But it still kills the enemies, and then you can go to the next room, just like with the tears. If you run into an enemy, it does do damage to you, just like this. It takes away a half a heart for each hit, and if you just stand in them, you'll just die, and then it goes to the game over screen. And on the game over screen, there's only 1 button, and you can play again. That's your only option, and it goes back to the start screen. So then we can go through the whole process again of selecting a new character, and then it goes back into the game, and it starts a brand new game. While in the new game, you can press the escape key, and this sends you straight back to the starting menu, so you can restart, choose a new character, or do whatever you want. One other feature in our game is that if you kill the enemies, they have a chance of dropping a heart. Hopefully one of these will drop it, just like that. And you can pick up these hearts to increase your health. Right now our max health is at 7, and so then if I go and take damage from this enemy over here, I can go and pick up this heart, and it will boost my health back up. The eye is another one of our items, and if you grab it, it changes your projectile from the laser back into the tears. And one other quick thing to mention is if you're in a room like this and you go and you've completed all the enemies, then you can go back to a room you've already been in, and it saves all these rooms. So you could go all the way back to the start room theoretically. I'm not going to do that now, but I just wanted to show that it does save all the rooms in the map. We made it to the room before the boss, and the boss room is indicated by this door over here that obviously displays that it's a boss room. And when you go through this door, it spawns a special type of room that is the boss room. Once you go in the boss room, you can't leave the boss room, so I'll enter that now and show you what's in there. Inside the boss room, there's a door, but the door doesn't actually work, it's only a way in. And in the boss room, the boss shoots projectiles, which you have to dodge, and it also shoots lasers, which can be a very deadly combo. I would show them hitting me, but I am about to die, and I don't want to do that. So that is the boss shooting. It shoots two different types of projectiles, and it also moves around the room for a little bit extra challenge. I did definitely die in that last boss fight, so now I am back in God mode. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, there is a health bar that displays the boss's health, and as you damage it, it goes down. I do a lot of damage right now. Normally the boss is a lot harder than this, but I actually can't die, so it makes it pretty easy. And once you defeat the boss room changes, and there is a hatch in the middle. If you go to this hatch in the middle, it brings you to the next floor of the game. Now I made it to the second boss, which has double the health of the first boss, and it has the same attack patterns, but everything just moves a little bit quicker. Now, if I kill this guy, it makes another hatch, and then I move on to the third floor. I now made it to the third boss, and this is the final boss of the game, if you choose it to be, and I'll explain that in a second once I kill him. He has more health than the last two bosses, and he's just a little bit more difficult. And now that I've defeated him, I can go through this last hatch, and it brings you to a "You win" screen. And on this "You win" screen, there's two buttons. The top button is to resume the game. You can just resume, and then it goes to an infinite amount of floors, and you can just keep playing. The bosses and enemies will keep getting harder, and it's just kind of like a how far can you make it? And then the title screen just brings you back to the title screen. While you are in the game, you can also resize the screen by clicking this, and it resizes the whole screen, and all the borders stay the same, like in a room.
Hello, my name's Austin, and the main files that I worked in were the game over and the rock screens, and then I also did some work implementing it in game. And so, what makes our project unique is that in rock, it's a little complicated because you have to take into account which direction they're moving from and set the bounds based off of the direction they collide into the rock, which is a little probably the most challenging. And the biggest thing I learned from the project is that it's a lot easier to work like in your own file than multiple people working in the same file at the same time because it makes merging it really, really difficult. And I think that our project deserves an A.
My name is Yu Yang. I worked on the enemies, items, laser, projectile, startup, and the windscreen. I think what I did that made our game really unique or special is the laser and projectiles of the like the attack patterns of the boss during the fight. And I think what I found really challenging was the startup screen because there was just so many different screens and buttons inside of a screen and button, and it gets really confusing really quickly. I've learned that uh, committing and pushing when there's multiple people working on a project can get really messy when multiple people work on the same document. And I think that we our project deserves an A on this.
It's Garrett again, and the main things that I worked on in our game are the room selecting, and the Garrett class itself. In the room class, it took a lot of logic and different things to combine all the different things. As you can see, we had many different items and rocks and enemies in play in a room, and we also had to do all the boss logic. So we had just had a lot of logic in each and every single room, and then on top of that, the room selecting was a whole separate process that required a lot of critical thinking and logic. Like it had to check if we were going into a boss room, and it also had to check which direction you were leaving a room, and then pick a room based off of those different distinctions. The thing that was most challenging to me about working on this project was the selecting of the different rooms. There was just so much that went into it, and so much thinking and like direction math and figuring out which way the character was moving to pick a new room with the correct doors so that they all lined up. And then the second most difficult thing that I did, which I'm really proud of, is getting the game to be able to scale up to a different image size. So inside of main it just has this little one extra part in the screen, but everything else takes a lot of work because you have to scale every single image that is in the game and also scale the room sizes and all of the room border logic and all of the hitboxes. So that took a lot of work. I think if we did that from the very start of the game, it would have been a lot easier and it would have been better to implement overall and worked a little bit nicer. I also worked on basically every single file in here. I uh, just added a few things here and there, made everything work together. One of the main things I've learned from this project is labeling code as you go is very helpful. Like each one of these different parts has a label just to explain what it does, so you can easily go through and find where you need to work on something and what needs to be fixed. I think that our project deserves an A because everybody put in a lot of effort and there's a lot of logic between each and every single part of our games with the hit collision and making sure that the laser and the projectile both work with the same stats and making everything upscale to different sizes. And overall, we all just put in a lot of work.